Zweig Group invites all AEC industry leaders to the 2024 AEC Small Business and Entrepreneurship Forum, the premier event for small firms in the AEC sector. Experience innovative strategies and insights on May 21st, crafted by Zweig Group's industry experts. Engage in keynotes and interactive sessions focused on recruitment, retention, and business growth. Join Zweig Group for this unique networking opportunity and take your business to new heights. Secure your spot today and be part of the AEC industry's future. Visit zweiggroup.com for more information. The Zweig Group team looks forward to welcoming you.
Welcome to the Zweig Letter Podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting advice and guidance in your ear. Zweig Group's team of experts have spent more than 3 decades elevating the industry by helping AEP and environmental consulting firms thrive. And these podcasts deliver invaluable management, industry, client, marketing, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter Podcasts, elevating the design industry one episode at a time.
Hey folks, I can't believe I'm saying this, but welcome to another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. Yes, it's me, Randy Wilburn. I am back and in full effect, although under a very different scenario than in the past. I am no longer an employee with Zweig Group, but I am a consultant to Zweig Group, have been actually since I left the company. But one of the things that I did was, we put the Zweig Letter Podcast on hiatus, and it's time to bring it back. I had a chance to sit down with my current guest for today, Christy Zweig, and also sat down with Chad Kleinens, the president and CEO of Zweig Group. And we said, enough is enough. We've got to put this podcast back together. And then in no uncertain terms, this whole coronavirus thing came about and really hit us here in the United States in such a profound way. And so I wish I could say that this particular episode is coming with much fanfare. It isn't. We'll have another day for that. We really want to talk about some of the major issues that are impacting our industry leaders, all design firms that work in the AE space. You know, there are so many architectural firms, engineering firms, planning firms, landscape architecture firms that are going to be severely impacted by this. Even the construction industry, of course, is impacted. So we're kind of all in this together. And what we wanted to do today is kind of go over some of the data points and information that we have received recently. I mean, up to date, even as of up to this morning, as well as just sharing some simple ideas and ways that you can get through this COVID-19 pandemic. And I do believe, as I think a lot of people do, that we can survive this. Of course, I wasn't around during the Spanish flu, and I wasn't around during some of these other pandemics. But, you know, when you read stories about it, people hunkered down and people got together and really supported each other. And I think even in this age of social media, this age of instantaneous gratification when it comes to anything that we want is basically within a keystroke on our phone. We need to be sending out doses of encouragement in any way, shape, or form that we can. And so Zweig Group today is trying to do that through this particular episode, and we will be doing that moving forward with regular updates about this pandemic as it continues to evolve and as it continues to affect us. So this won't be the last time that we talk about it, but we're jumping right into it. And you know what they say, it's like a baptism by fire. I do podcasts all the time, so this is not my first rodeo, but I certainly have pulled somebody in that hasn't done a ton of podcasts, but I'd love for you to welcome my good friend, somebody that I've known since she was actually a child, Christy Zweig Niehaus. How are you doing, Christy?
I'm doing good, Randy. Thank you so much. And I think that we really need these conversations now more than ever. So I'm glad that you're able to provide a platform for us today.
Yeah. Well. First of all, I appreciate that. And why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about how this particular survey came about? Because some people may not even be aware of the survey, and we'll put a link to the survey in the show notes for this particular episode. Anywhere you go, we'll put the link. We'll put a hot link right on the show notes for this, so that if you're looking at this on your phone or listening to it on your phone, you can click on that link right there and take the survey. And on top of all that, you'll get the updates. But so how did this survey come about?
Well, typically at this time of year, we launch what we call our AEC Industry Outlook Survey, where we poll, firm leaders in the AEC industry on what their outlook is for the next 12 months and kind of what their experience has been the past 12 months. But literally right as we were getting to launch this survey, the coronavirus hit the United States, and we started seeing our clients and the firms that we work with having to make some really quick decisions and change things rather rapidly. And I think everybody started to see that, the outlook for the AEC industry and the economy in general was changing very quickly. So we pivoted and said, we've got to add some specific questions relating to this into the survey that we usually launch. And then we also realized that people need this information in real time right away. They need it now. They don't need it, 12 days from now after we gather all the responses and create some kind of analysis of it. We've got to make this thing dynamic. And we need to be giving people information really every day at this point. So we set the survey up so that anybody who takes it automatically gets the results at the end of the survey, and it just updates in real time. So every time a new person takes it, you can hit refresh on that page and you can see the numbers changing. And then we're also doing some analysis on it. Really, basically every time we get another 25 to 50 responses, we're doing additional analysis on it and putting together just a brief report and sending that out to everybody who has taken the survey.
Okay. So, and then as of today, the survey was launched on the 12th of March. And so I think as of, you had written an article that as of the 15th, you had about 77 firms from nearly every geographic region in the U.S. of all sizes and ranges, of all disciplines, had responded to the survey. Where are we currently at as of today, the day that we're actually doing this recording?
So right now we're at 110 responses.
Wow. Okay.
So it has definitely continued to grow, and it seems, every day more coming in, and we're also just watching how these numbers change.
Yeah. And so I'd love for you maybe just to kind of go through for our listeners a little bit behind just the some of the questions asked, because I know some of them are basic questions about demographic questions, but some of the more revealing questions that really got you to realize that, man, people are starting to course correct in a major way in how they do business every day. So why don't you kind of go through the survey just a little bit, just to give an idea and maybe share some of the data points that you have found.
Absolutely. So, to start off, I think the most obvious question is, how are firms dealing with having travel limitations on their employees and following CDC guidelines, not having these large gatherings of people in the office. Most offices, throughout the United States are having to move to either a partial work from home policy or completely having everybody work from home. So when we first launched this, the first, more detailed report we did, we found that still, the bulk of firms were moving to be more adjustable and have people work from home. But we asked them, what percentage of your firm's workforce can effectively work from home? And the average and median was just around 50%. So that's okay, but that's not great. That's just half of employees being able to continue, effectively working in a different environment. Now, as of this morning, that had already shifted to a median of 70% with an average of 61%. So what that says to me is that these firms are adjusting rapidly and being able to either invest in technology or get more creative with how they typically do their projects so that more people can work in a remote environment. We're also seeing, obviously, they're having to change some policies as well. I know that the AEC industry can typically not move too quickly when it comes to making policy changes.
Yeah.
And that's just become a necessity at this point. So, still we have about 12% of the industry is saying that my firm does not allow for telecommuting and hasn't changed their policies at all. But we're seeing many, many more move towards, being able to allow any employee to telecommute at any time. And, that's up to almost 30% of the industry is now doing that, or at least allowing for certain employees to work remote. That's up to 22%.
Yeah. And I got to think for firms like, I know one firm that you had mentioned in your article about WGI, they're a 6-person firm with multiple offices across several states. I would imagine that, if you're a single operation, one location, it might be a little easier to kind of work this through. But when you have so many moving parts like a WGI does, and like so many of the Zweig Group clients do around the country, it must be a bear to deal with.
Oh, yeah. WGI has 600 employees. And so I think that they had to really set out with a policy change pretty early on. I think that they reacted very quickly compared to some other firms in the industry, just because they had all these different geographic locations and they wanted to get ahead of it. And, I think that was a good response.
Yeah. So what else are you hearing from this? Let's continue to go through this particular survey. What else were your findings that were really kind of eye-opening?
So, the big question is, how is this going to impact your firm's revenue and how is it going to impact your internal budget? And definitely we're starting to see increased concern about revenue decreases. We're up to about 63% of the industry is saying this is probably going to impact my firm's revenue over the next 12 months. Looking at, a median of about 10% decrease is what most firms are projecting at this point. Not terrible, but it's definitely becoming a concern. And I think that they're responding by also considering changes to the budget.
Right.
So right now we're at 52% of firms in the industry have considering making some changes there, cutting that budget a little bit. But still, we've got about 45% of firms are saying, hey, we haven't made any changes to the budget yet, and we're not planning on it at this time. So they're optimistic.
Yeah.
So
that's. I mean, I think there's, it's funny. I think those responses mirror the general public, right? There are two schools of thought about this. There's 3 schools, because there is a school of thought, and as crazy as it sounds, is that this is just a hoax and it's going to go away. There's another school of thought that's like, the media is overblowing this, and it's not as bad as people make it out. And they keep referring back to these age-old statistics about the flu, which I get it, I understand that. I think a lot of that, though, is born out of fear, right? Fear of just the unknown. People just don't know. So I would rather think that, everything's going to be fine, as opposed to start hypothesizing about what could be that might not be a favorable outcome. And what could be is that this is a prolonged event. It is a pandemic. It is a world situation. Everybody listening to this is not in this by themselves. You are being affected just like everybody else is. Your competitors, your clients, it doesn't matter. The coronavirus is no respecter of persons. So everybody is in this together. And I think it's just important to bemoan that point, because sometimes I think we feel like, it's not going to affect me the way that it affects my client down the road. Yes, it will. It will. And if you choose to put your head in the sand, then, as some people that I've run across, then you could really set yourself and your company up for major failure.
Well, and I think the key to success in this is quick decision making, and honestly, being able to change decisions as the situation changes. So We've seen a lot of firms, they've had to make adjustments at first. They wanted to keep their productivity, or they didn't have the resources for people to work from home fully. Well, now a lot of those firms have been forced into either making those investments or having a cultural shift that allows for that. It's just become a necessity at this point. And I think that we all just have to be nimble and flexible and keep thinking about what's the most efficient way to get things done. What's a new way that we can get things done based on the current environment that we have, the current restrictions that we have, how can we keep all of our employees safe? How can we keep our clients safe? But also, how can we continue to make progress and move forward every single day? With having some projects be potentially put on hold, right now we're seeing about 25% of firms who responded said that their projects have either been canceled or delayed. It's a really good time to work on some of your internal initiatives.
Yeah.
And it's a good time to, work on a strategic plan going forward. It's a good time to look to your firm and say, okay, well, what things do we need to change here? It's really just about, making the most of all the time that we have.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I've been telling people, is to kind of hunker down and in between doing the work that you have to do, there's so much extra downtime that you actually now have time. Whenever I've gone into firms, and you've done this too, you go in to meet with a firm, and of course time is the scarcest resource, right? And it's something that we just don't have enough of. So everybody invariably says, oh, if only I had more time to do this or that. Well, you know what? You have nothing else to compete with right now. There are no vacations happening. My kids are off for 2 weeks for spring break, and we are stuck in the house. And that's just the way that it is. So I have no choice. If I'm not sleeping or doing some type of workout to keep my sanity going, I am working. And it's just given me a chance to kind of figure out what are my weaknesses, what areas of my business do I need to improve in, and how can I just get better at what I do, and even improve and add additional offerings. And it's just a time to educate yourself. I think a lot of personal and professional development should take place in this period, right? Because, whenever we go out and do a ZWI group training, anywhere we go, whether it's a TPA or any of the, in-house trainings, people are always like, oh, I have so much going on. I want to get this training over so I can get back to the work that I have to do. Well, now you have that opportunity to develop yourself professionally and personally in some areas of weakness. And we all have weaknesses. So it's just important for people to think that, look at it as the glass half full as opposed to being half empty with this COVID-19 situation, that it actually opens up the door for you to do a lot of to work on a lot of areas of improvement, both for your company, but also for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's a great time to kind of touch base with your clients, see what they're doing, and how they're coping with these challenges as well. And I think it's broken down some barriers between people in a way, even though we're not physically together as much. I am starting to see a lot of camaraderie. I'm seeing, even amongst our own office here, we're suddenly having all these different phone conversations with our people that are in other locations that we might not have normally had, because we've got time for that. We're doing some brainstorming. We're trying to think about, new solutions and new ways that we can do things. People are calling each other and texting each other. And I think, I hate to say this, but those are the positive things that can come out of a time like this. So as a firm leader, it's important to touch base with your employees. It may be good time to do a firm-wide survey and see where everybody is and how they're feeling about things. It's a good time to reach out to people personally and also stay in touch with those clients.
Yeah, I like the firm-wide survey idea. It's so easy now to, just pull out SurveyMonkey and just ask like 5 or 6 questions. You don't have to go crazy. I mean, just keep it really simple and just ask some basic information and find out where people are. If you're a large firm, the survey is certainly the way to go. If you're a small firm, say like under 100 people, as a CEO or as one of the leaders in a firm like that, what I would probably do is section out a number of employees and just tap your leadership to reach out to these individuals and have one-on-one conversations with them, just to check in, a welfare check. And then beyond that, just to say, hey, where are you right now? How are things going on all of your projects? What do you have concerns with your projects? What are you happy with your projects? And then more importantly, what are your overall concerns about how things are going right now?
Yeah, totally agree, Randy. And now is a good time to have those conversations.
Yeah. So I'd certainly do that. So what else, what other points, data points from the survey really jump out at you, Christy, that you'd like to share with the audience?
Well, we did keep some of the standard questions that we had in here from the AEC Industry Outlook, and I think that these are more important than ever now. So, we asked firms, where do you expect the economy to be in 12 months? And unfortunately, we've seen this kind of tick downwards over the past week even. But, we still have about 20% of firms saying, hey, I think that the economy is going to be okay with this. I expect it to be the same in 12 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we only have about 15% are saying that it's going to be in much worse shape. We actually have 17.5% are saying, I think we're going to bounce back from this and the economy is going to be in better shape in 12 months. So there's still a lot of optimism out there. Don't think that it's all just doom and gloom. And I think it's all on how we respond to it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Wow. It's funny. I try not to get into the hyper hysteria of everything that's going on. But when you look at this, Johns Hopkins University has the COVID-19 global cases that they are studying, and it's staggering to see how quickly it's changing here. Even here in the United States, and it's just it's a real wake up call that we have to now more than ever we have to react. And we even right here, you and I are both in Fayetteville, Arkansas, in the center of the country, and we just had our first case. And I've been told by several people that work in the healthcare industry that brace yourself because there are several more coming. And so this is a real issue. This is a real issue. And while we're not necessarily talking about the virus itself, I mean, obviously, every firm needs to be putting in measures in place to protect all of their people. There is no amount of business profit that you can make in this time that will forgo the need to make sure that you first are communicating that you're taking care of your people. People over profit in this atmosphere is of utmost importance, I think, because the firms that take a hard line stance in this and make sure that they're taking care of their people, it will be reciprocated now and in the future. Because I do believe that this too will pass, not without some major pain, but it's going to pass. And a lot of people are going to look back historically and say, wow, what did we do? Did we do the right thing or did we not do the right thing? And so, the data points that we're finding from the survey that you did, Christy, I think are really important.
Well, and I think, what we're seeing still in the industry is a lot of firms are hesitant to issue a formal policy that says you're not allowed to travel or you're not allowed to network with clients. You're not allowed to do certain things, but they're saying, hey, we support our employees and what kinds of choices they want to make for their own health and safety. But, I think it's going to become important, especially over the next few days, that firms are going to have to start drawing a little bit more of a hard line on that because of the nature of the virus. If people are infected and don't realize it, you don't want that spreading around your office or over to your clients as well. And I think that it's also just becoming important to say, hey, we're recognizing this, and these are the formal measures that we're taking to respond. And it's more than just, hand washing and don't come around us if you think that you're sick. I think that we've got to have some formal policy changes in place so that everybody is on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, right now we still have like half of all firms are saying, business travel is on a case by case. We really only have about 20% of firms are saying they've suspended all business travel.
Yeah. And I think, and that's a hard decision to make, right? Because especially if you've got a very, very important project, as all projects are important. So let's just call it what it is. But I know there are some time sensitive issues that are taking place, and it may require your face-to-face interaction with somebody. But I got to tell you, I was on a plane last week and it was empty. There were 6 people coming back from LaGuardia to Northwest Arkansas. And it was really eerily quiet on the plane. And even going out to Oregon a couple of days before that, where, there's a lot going on, it was an empty plane. I mean, people had whole rows to themselves. So if you haven't been on a plane in a while, you're going to be really surprised if you do get on one soon. I mean, most major airlines have suspended about 40% of their operations, especially, of course, international travel. But it is really you'll notice a difference if you have to get on a plane. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, and we're definitely hearing from some clients that they're just having to get in their cars and drive.
Yeah,
And
that's an option.
it does take more time, but it seems like it's a safer option for them, and at least they're still able to accomplish what they need to. And I think a lot of that at this point, if it's just a meeting, it can be done virtually, but certain things like being able to look at a project site and look at problems out there in the environment, make choices from that are just necessary. You've got to be able to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was even told by somebody, I have a client up in Boston, and they all their people are working from home now, which was like unheard of. And this was a firm that, they were all about FaceTime. FaceTime is really important, and I get that.
Yeah.
But they have just totally switched like 100, they've done a 180, and now they're like, you know what? We can all work from home and get along just fine. And and then the other thing about Boston specifically was that my understanding was, just as of the day before yesterday, I think a lot of construction projects have been suspended. So
yes, I read that. Yeah. All non-essential construction projects have been suspended. So that's going to be a major hit.
Right. Because you would think with most design professionals, they are usually going out to observe and take a look at projects, how they're going, and what's actually happening. And in this case, if a project is shuttered for any reason, then there's almost no reason to get on a plane or to get in a car and go see them about that, and so there's got to be some other ways. And I think, Christy, I think there's going to be some more we haven't seen the end of the creativity that's going to take part here when it comes to, viewing projects, interacting with the client. Of course, Zoom, if you haven't bought any Zoom stock lately, which this is actually the platform that we're using, and I'm not shilling for them at all, but I mean, their stock has gone through the roof because everybody and their mother is now using Zoom conference calls, as many others, GoToMeeting and Demio and so many others. But the bottom line is that this could potentially be the new normal. And I don't know if a lot of firms are ready for it, but you're going to pretty much have to jump in with both feet and just get accustomed to meeting with your clients this way and to potentially interacting with. Because the other thought that I had is that, it's probably easier to have one person go out, take a drone and do a site assessment with a drone, because you can do it. And and then you're not impacting like several people, and then you can do a site assessment with a drone, and it gives you as much data as you can have in a situation where you don't have to actually physically go to a location or site and look at it.
Yeah, and I think also some firms have started to use some virtual reality type technologies, and that is really going to be a big thing going forward. I think that the firms who can pivot and be able to use things like that are going to have an advantage during this time and also going forward. So I think some of the changes and the investments and the creativity that is beginning right now is going to stick going forward, and ultimately it's going to be a good thing. It's going to make firms more efficient. It's going to have people be coming up with solutions they might not otherwise have. It's not all terrible. Still, I know that it's hard right now. We actually asked firms, what factors are preventing your employees from, effectively working from home? And still the absolute number one thing right now is just this lack of computers and equipment that can be effectively used away from the office. That's like 43% of firms are saying that that's what's stopping them from being efficient right now. Yeah. And yes, those are investments, but if there's an obstacle, that's one of the easier ones to solve.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder how many firms don't have all their data in the cloud, because that to me is one of probably the limiting factors for that. If you're relying on a server sitting in a dusty closet somewhere in your office, that's a junction point that creates a problem. I was talking to some IT professionals the other day on another podcast that I do, and they were talking about the importance of, if you haven't set one up, to set up a VPN or virtual private network.
Absolutely,
and to figure out ways to leverage and access your data and information anywhere. Let me stress that. I don't care where you are. You should be able to access this information no matter where you are, because I think it's important for firms to be able to do that. And, clients are going to expect that if I call somebody, I should be able to get an answer and not, yeah, I'm actually working from home, but I don't have access to that particular server, so I can't give you that information right now. I'm going to have to reach out to Bob or Sue and have them give me an update, and then I'll get back to you. We're past that, folks. If that's still how your operation is running, then you need to take a quick, hard look at your data points and the choke points in your data and in your information that you keep, because you need to make it accessible on a number of different platforms, and you need to figure out a way, potentially in a lot of instances, to get it into the cloud or to make it way more accessible than it currently is.
Yeah, we asked about that as well, and what we're seeing right now is just over 15% of the industry is saying that those data security intranet issues are what is preventing them from really effectively working from home. Again, that's something that can be fixed. That is a potential solution that's out there. And, we're also seeing some firms say, hey, really our problem is we just don't have this collaborative software that we need to keep, people from different disciplines or departments or teams working together right now.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the other thing that these IT professionals mentioned to me. They said that team software is really important. So, right now, as a matter of fact, because I have this, for anybody that's wondering, Microsoft is giving out Microsoft Teams for free for like the next 60 to 90 days. And this will allow people to do chat, video calls, ad hoc video meetings, and then I think it also gives you access to the full suite of Office 365 products like Word and everything else. Because, Christy, you know this, and I've seen this when I've gone into other firms. I'm always amazed at the patchwork of how, firms utilize this information, and one person's using one program and somebody else is using another program, and there's no fluidity in how information is being managed and shared. And so, something like that, like a team working environment where everybody's using Office 365, or everybody's using Zoho, or everybody's using Google. There are ways to get everybody on the same page, so that when you're sharing information and sharing resources, it makes it a lot easier. And I even know that you guys at Zweig do that. And so it's important for firms to figure out if that is a pain point, figure it out now. And there are a number of local IT firms that'll be more than happy to kind of walk you through some of the best practices as far as that's concerned. I'll certainly put in the show notes the link for this Office 365 and Microsoft Teams free version. I stress that it's free to anyone. This is not just for students and educators. This is for everybody. So, you might want to take a look at this.
I actually talked with a firm last week who has 100% of their employees work remote normally. And that was what they stressed was really helpful in keeping everybody working together. That product right there. So this is not an advertisement. Just
no, it's not. Working. Yeah, no, absolutely, it's not. But I don't care. You use whatever you want to use. But programs like Slack.
I think it's important to have something.
Yeah, even Slack right now. If everybody has Slack on your team, then at least everybody's communicating back and forth, kind of like in real time, and you don't have to even worry about email. Because honestly, especially for the younger, for the millennials, and for the Gen Zs of the world that are in your firms, they are iterating and communicating at a much faster level and a faster speed than a lot of other people. So getting them to adopt is going to be simple. It's a lot of the older people in the firms that sometimes struggle with change. As a Gen Xer, as for myself, I can kind of navigate between both worlds. But you have some other, some of the folks in our boomer generation, which we have a lot of in the design space. Sometimes they don't like to gravitate towards that, but this is a time for you to learn something new. And yes, I'm talking to you boomers that work in the design space. You can learn something new. Even if you've been holding out, this is not the time to hold out, because it is all hands on deck. We've all got to come together. And I remember, while the outcome for these guys didn't end too well, I just remember seeing that scene in Titanic when that whole group of musicians, they kept playing and they kept playing and they kept playing, and they were all in one accord and in agreement. And I'm not liking this to the sinking of the Titanic, but I'm just saying that in desperate times, yes, it does call for desperate measures, but you want to operate from that perspective with everybody in sync. And I think it's just important to remember that.
Yeah.
So anything else with the survey before we talk about Mark's article, which I think also highlights some other important points that we haven't necessarily gotten to yet?
Anything else from the survey?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think we also asked just people personally, hey, what are you doing as yourself? And, we've really seen this number of people who've just said, hey, I've stopped everything that's non-essential as far as travel goes myself. That's up to 46%, and 21% of people are saying I'm just avoiding certain locations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and in some places, if you're in the Bay Area, I mean, there's 7 counties that are in a shelter in place order right now.
Yeah.
Every place, their local leadership is doing whatever they can to deal with this issue. And, some people's hands are going to have to be forced before they realize how serious this is. Because of course, I look at social media and I see the comments on Facebook by people that I actually esteem fairly highly that, still don't think this is as big of a deal as it is. And I'm like, it's fine. It's fine to take that approach, but the outcome could be very painful for you. And all I'm suggesting is that an ounce of caution now will pay off in spades in the long run. And here's the thing that everybody has to be reminded of. We have to survive this. We have to get through this, and people will get through this. And, I think that there's going to be a tremendous opportunity that comes up when this is all said and done, because everybody's going to be ready to really get back to work in a way that we were used to in the past. But there'll be some changes that will have come out of this COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, let's just talk a little bit about, and if anybody that's listening to this is like, man, that survey sounds amazing, I want to take that survey. I can't remember. Is the website really long? Is it something that you can mention on the podcast, or do we just have to put it in the show notes? Or did you append it to
we'll
the
put a specific link in there, but you can just go to zwigroup.com and go to our survey participation page, and it's the number one thing right there at the top.
Cool. Yeah, we might need to put that on the front page of Zweig's website, because that to me is like, that's the first thing that everybody's checking. But yeah, so we'll make sure we put that there. But just go to zwigroup.com and click on surveys, and it'll be the top survey there that you can take, and you get your results right away.
Yes. Yeah, we also have kind of an ongoing blog post, which is on our news section, where we are posting reports on the updates to this, that we, are more formal reports that have more detailed analysis, and putting a new one up there, almost every day at this point. So you can easily check that page. There's a link there to participate in the survey and some more information.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's switch gears just a little bit. Mark Zweig, who still writes the main article in the Zweig letter on a regular basis. He's still the chairman of Zweig Group. He wrote a really good, really sobering message earlier this week to talk about some of the things that everybody has to think about. And I can't help but remind people that his first sentence says we can all make it through this. And I want to stress that nobody is serving up fear or hype. I think we just need to be mindful of where we are and how we get through this. But Mark just kind of laid it out for people in this article. And, for one of the first things that he said was that no firm will be able to achieve its long-term potential without first surviving. And that is in and of itself the first thing that you need to be thinking about. We have to collectively survive this. Our company, we've been around, whether it's 5 years, whether it's 10 years, whether it's 50 years, we need to survive. That's the first and foremost. And then secondly, if there have not been a lot of communication, because Christy, you and I know about this because we've been in a lot of firms and we see this. What's one of the biggest challenges that design firms struggle with is communication or lack thereof.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's so important now more than ever.
Yeah. And so, Mark said, obviously, a daily email from the CEO on the firm's financial status and actions being taken to deal with the coronavirus situation may well be in order. Obviously, people are fearful. So, it's not a situation where less is more. It's you actually more is more, and you're going to have to, share some information. So my advice would be is to structure an email, and maybe you have 3 paragraphs, and in each paragraph, you just kind of give a state of the state address. Another paragraph talks about the actual pandemic and how it's impacting and affecting you and the local area where you live. So if you're just in one area, it's easy for you to deal with that. If you're not, and if you've got offices in multiple states, you're going to have to do a little bit more work. And so I would imagine that if you've got a larger operation, you probably have somebody else that can cull that data for you so that you can then put it into your words and share it out with your team. And then finally, make sure you keep people up to date with the financial status of the company and the financial health. And for some of you that don't operate from an open book management perspective, which is something that Zweig Group has always adhered to and have always consulted their firms to consider operating from, then this may be a chance for you to be a little bit more transparent about how things are financially and what are the challenges. Because I bet you that if you start to share where your firm is, that other people will say, you know what, we need to, we need to buckle down, and they won't be so nonchalant about the way they spend money, the way they do certain things, because, austere measures are important in this day and age, especially with everything that's going on. Christy, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. Well, I would just say to that is it's, important to communicate that actions are being taken. And I think it's also important at this time to kind of open up the brainstorming to employees about, what can be done to keep projects on track, or what are some additional sources of revenue that could be derived during this time. Because everybody has good ideas, but it's also important to give people the right kind of venue or method of sharing those ideas so that people are still staying on track, not like spending hours of time researching something when an action has already been taken to solve an issue. So that's why that communication is so important, so that you don't have people that are spending tons of time kind of, chasing down rabbit holes when somebody else has already found a solution to the problem. Yeah. So what we've seen is, that could be anything from like a live Google Doc where people are collaborating. That could be a video conference call with a team, every day. And then the director or manager from that team goes and talks again, and all those people talk amongst themselves. So there's a lot of different solutions to that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I love the live Google Doc and the video conferencing call. We actually did a live Google Doc in my subdivision here in Fayetteville, just to make sure that we look out for some of the older people that really don't need to go out. If you're over 70 plus and maybe you're in a compromised health situation, you don't need to go out. And so we've actually created a Google Doc that we share among all 180 residents in our subdivision. And if anybody needs anything, that Google Doc gets updated, and somebody that can get in a car and go run an errand or go pick up some to-go food, or, run and make a toilet paper run or whatever, can do that and help them out. So this is the time to use that technology.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So here's, and of course, Mark talked about, and we've already talked about this ad nauseum, but letting everyone work from home who can possibly do so. Obviously, there are a lot of people that can't, childcare services. I think in Arkansas alone, like 653 daycare centers have closed. That's ridiculous. And I can only imagine that it's the same way in other places, because what are you going to do? And so you don't have a choice. So you almost have to work from home and be creative. And you've got a child at home. I've got 3 at home. And so we don't really have a choice, but these are, letting somebody work from home. It's just an easy win on so many levels, because, everyone's first and foremost focus should be their family and their own personal welfare. Then the company, as far as that's concerned. Because if you're a company owner or a leader and you think that it should be the other way around and they should be company first and then everybody else, that's a losing proposition right there. But but if people are not they don't feel safe, they don't feel like they can take care of themselves and their family, they're not going to be able to do a good job for you. So working from home is an easy conversation as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, so I will tell you that, we're having to homeschool this week and next week at a minimum right now because the schools, have closed and turned to virtual classrooms. And it's been a lot of work, just getting those systems set up and then just helping him with the work. Had to do like an algebra lesson earlier this week, took like a full hour of explaining, how to isolate the variable and things like that. And so that's definitely putting an extra strain, I'm sure, on a lot of families right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But, the good thing is from the AEC industry standpoint, my husband is a landscape architect as well. And our son is getting so much exposure to so many different things that I think that kids don't necessarily always get to see from the professional side, like looking over his dad's shoulder at what he's doing on a project or hearing me have these conference calls and things like that.
Yeah.
So, some of those lessons will hopefully stick with them. It's just a different kind of education.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I think I have already recorded like 5 different podcast episodes for a variety of different podcasts this week. And I've just been running from one thing to the next. And so my kids are like, man, when are you recording another podcast? Because they want to see me do it and see what goes into it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there are definitely some silver linings there. And then I just think that, in the busyness of life, because we're constantly moving 90 to 100 miles an hour, I personally think that we have a way of being slowed down. And the COVID-19 pandemic is slowing us down to stop for a second and breathe and kind of catch our collective breaths. Yes, it's painful to deal with this, and nobody would want this type of situation to cause this, but it is what it is. And so I say, when in Rome, you have to figure out a way to embrace it and figure out why you're stopping in the first place. So talk to your clients. That was another thing that Mark mentioned. And I think this is really important. This gets back to the whole communication issue that we discussed, but you want to talk to your clients. You want to find out how things are going for them. And this is a really good chance if you are in a situation where you're working with some clients and I'm always amazed at this, even in this day and age, that there are a lot of firms that have clients where they don't really have relationships with them. It's more transactional. And this is a chance for you to really get to build and start a relationship if you don't already have one. If you already have one, if you know your clients' names, their spouse or significant others' names, what their kids like to do, what their kids' names are, and all that good stuff, then fine. I'm not talking to you. But for those of you that keep it business as usual when you're dealing with your clients and you don't get into all of that, listen, everybody has a life outside of their job. And I would encourage you to find time to learn more about them. What are they going through? I've been talking to one client after the other, text messaging, phone calling, you name it. Hey, how are you doing? How are you and the family doing in this situation? Do you need anything? So on and so forth. And it's always reciprocated. It just works out that way. So I would really encourage firms to figure out a way to just get on the phone and talk with their clients. Don't make it all about business. How are you holding up in this situation? What's happening? Really have a conversation with them and don't act as if it's just business as usual. And then again, here's the real thing, Christy, because we say this all the time when it comes to proposals and when it comes to scope creep issues and issues of, getting adjustments and change orders and all that stuff. You need to have some money conversations with your client. Is everything okay? We have an upcoming bill coming due. Will it be a problem? Should we expect for something else? Will you not be able to fulfill the total bill? And these are questions that you need to know. Maybe a client tells you, listen, we've got a $10,000 bill coming to you next week. And then the client says, yeah, but we're going to have a problem paying that whole amount, but we can give you $7,500. Is that okay? Good to know.
Yeah.
That's the kind of information. Am I right? I mean, is there anything you want to add to that, Christy?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's better to have that conversation and know what to expect or be able to make an adjustment versus just not having that line of communication at all and sitting there wondering.
Yeah, absolutely. And then here's the other thing too, is, Mark talked about cutting all unnecessary overhead expenses. That should go without saying. But if there was ever a time for you to take a fine tooth comb, sorry for the alliteration here, and go through all of your finances and find out where the waste is. Okay. And this is a much harder conversation. Not that you're going to get rid of anybody, but you even have to look at personnel. You need to look at, are there redundancies there? Are there people that, maybe you've been having some challenges with? And, this is a real chance for you to have some real conversations with your folks about their performance, and hey, we need you to really continue to improve in this area. And this is an opportunity for you, just like it is for us, to be able to rise to the occasion, and that will give you a chance to do that. So I think it's important to look at all overhead expenses, make sure you aren't leaving extra lights on. Look at any service contracts that you have that need to be renewed. Maybe some don't need to be renewed. Do you have unnecessary software just sitting out there? Software as a service is one of the biggest leaks of money out of firms. That you will have signed up for something a year or two ago and forgot that you have it. You're not even using it.
Oh, absolutely.
But you're paying for it, right? I mean, you have something to add to that?
No, I mean, we just see it all the time. And this is just such a good time to work on your business and take a look at all those expenses. Make sure you're using everything you have to its fullest capacity. And if not, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Subscriptions
Absolutely.
and technology.
It's huge. It's huge. I have to go through it myself, and I just keep a spreadsheet of all of the SaaS that I purchase on a monthly basis, because after a while you lose sight of it, and it's like on a personal level it's $5.99 here, $9.99 there, but on a business level it's $79.99 a month here, $109 or $119.99 a month there, and that stuff adds up. So figure out where you can cut costs.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's where that communication comes back into play, because even in small firms, they'll have different departments or teams, and they may make some small investment in a certain program or method of communication amongst one team, but they're not sharing that with the entire firm. And so sometimes there are, economies of scale where if everybody was using the same thing, you can get the whole firm on a more affordable subscription or plan. Or maybe there's solutions that certain teams haven't even thought of that others are using that are either inexpensive or even free.
Yeah.
It's just so important to have those conversations right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mark also mentioned this, which I know he's not a huge fan of, but sometimes it's necessary. And these are extraordinary times, but consider across the board pay cuts. I'd rather take a pay cut and keep the firm lights on and keep things moving forward than try to power through with our current payroll, with the understanding that, we may not be bringing in nearly as much money as we need to bring in to cover payroll or anything else. So sometimes taking a pay cut might be helpful. And if you do take a pay cut, again, communication is important. You want to let people know the period of time that you're going to do this, and that you're going to take a pay cut with the understanding that you're going to make up for it later, that you will make people whole, if you will, with regard to the amount of money that they gave up on a regular basis in order to help to keep the company afloat.
Yep. I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow, but you're totally right. Sometimes it has to happen. Yeah.
And then a couple of other things that we've kind of alluded to, but there's never been a better time for you to talk to your bank. You want to try to see if you don't have a line of credit, maybe see about getting a line of credit. There's a lot of money out there on the street right now. Interest rates are historically at all-time lows. And so the availability of cash is actually pretty good right now, as long as you have a pretty decent position with your company. And even then, all I would say is that it's not what you know, it's who you know. And if you have a good banker relationship, if you don't already have a good relationship with your banker, now's the time to develop that relationship. Every bank manager, every manager of a portfolio of business clients it's their prerogative to want to have a relationship with you. So I would encourage you, if you don't know your banker by first name, you need to figure out a way to do that. But one of the things that you can do, especially in this time, is to find out about a way to get a line of credit, especially before things get worse, because I think that they will. And then, obviously, maybe look at all of your commitments that you have outstanding, figure out ways, be proactive about contacting some of your creditors to say, hey, I'm going to need a little bit more time to pay this. Can we change the terms? Can we have 45 days instead of 30? Can we have 60 instead of 45? I mean, again, a lot of situations, some of it is companies won't even tell you that they're doing it. They're already doing it, but you don't know unless you ask. So you need to go to firms and companies that you owe money to creditors and say, hey, we'd like a little extra time. Is that possible? And find out how much extra time that you can get. And so sometimes 15 days is huge.
Yeah.
So, and then there's also the SBA emergency loans that are out there. There was a $50 million $50 billion emergency loan program from the SBA for small businesses affected by the coronavirus. So that's probably you. It's definitely, I mean, a lot of firms are affected by this. And so there is money out there. You need to check with your local leaders, your local SBA lender to find out what is actually available in your area. I would start with your local leaders and go to whatever local bank is your major SBA lender and talk to them. They're going to be well versed on this, and they'll be the ones to be able to help you out and kind of guide you down whatever path that you can go down. You'd be surprised. There's more money than you think out there available for you. Sometimes you just have to ask for it.
Yeah, I think it really just depends on your firm type and firm size. And, all kinds of different ways that you're structured internally. There's going to be options. And I think that is another situation we're going to see continue to change. Yeah. I can't even possibly forecast at this time what may become available, but I think we're already starting to see some action on that.
And, given that this survey is kind of a living, breathing thing, you may want to add in a question about if individuals have sought additional funding, any SBA type of funding, because that will be helpful for others to have that data point in this space and know that, oh, okay, well, here's an architectural firm in Iowa. They applied and got an SBA loan to help them with X, Y, and Z. So, I mean, it's just, sometimes we just need examples set before us to allow us to know that, oh, okay, I can do this. So, I think that's definitely something that I would recommend doing. Mm-hmm. And then finally, Mark talks about talking with your competitors and peer firms. And I think it's a mistake to think that you're in a bubble by yourself and that we're just going to hunker down and get through this and it's us against the world. It's not you against the world. It's you and everybody else against coronavirus. And that's kind of what it is. So it's not a situation where you're in this by yourself. And so I think it's important for you, if you haven't established some relationships with some of your competitors, you need to do that. There's nothing like a healthy competition, and it's important for you to figure out how to find out how other people are doing in your marketplace. And so I would encourage you to establish a peer group of CEOs or other leaders of design firms and just share and trade information. And who knows, there might be something that a firm down the street's doing that you need to implement in your organization, but you're afraid to do it because you're concerned about giving up trade secrets. Listen, there's nothing new under the sun. Whatever one design firm's doing, probably other design firms are doing in some variation or form. So I really want to encourage you to get over yourself when it comes to that and really be open to being transparent, having real conversations, and learning from other people. Because I got to tell you, folks, again, we are in uncharted waters, and you need to do everything in your power to survive. You need to do everything in your power to grow, even in these challenging times. And you need to be open and willing to share with others what's going on.
Yeah, my group is actually working on developing some kind of like virtual roundtables and ways that we can help encourage those conversations and being able to talk with your peers in the industry. And more of that will be coming soon. So keep an eye on our website.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so and certainly as this podcast continues to roll out, I'm so excited to be doing the Zweig Letter podcast. We have over 150 episodes in the vault. So I certainly encourage you to go back and listen to some of those. But we're coming out of the gates. And of course, we're in the middle of this whole pandemic, but there's going to be a lot of new information shared on the podcast. It's in the same location it's always been, so you'll be able to continue to subscribe to it. If you had paused your subscription, now is the time to get back with us and tune in on a regular basis, because we're going to have some really very valuable episodes coming up in the near future, certainly dealing with this. But then when this issue is over, and it will be at some point in time, we will be talking about how we pick up the pieces, how we continue to move forward. And the Zweig Letter Podcast is going to do everything in our power to bring that information to you in a timely manner. And so we're excited to be here. So any final thoughts, Christy?
No, thank you so much, Randy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. Yes, we are dealing with difficult times, but you know what? Together, we can get through this. I firmly believe that. As always, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me here at Zweig Group at rwilburn@zweiggroup.com. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. When you check out this particular episode of the podcast, I would encourage you to go to the show notes, which is on the Zweig Group website, which will kind of give you some additional information. So everything that Christy and I talked about today will be accessible on that show note page, and will give you some helpful points to check out the Microsoft 365 Office team environment and all that other good stuff that we mentioned today will be on there. If you haven't already taken the survey, I want to encourage you to take the survey and get the results instantly. If you have any questions for Christy, why don't you give the audience your email real quick?
Yeah, my email is czweig, that's czweig, at zweiggroup.com. And feel free to reach out to me with any questions that you have about this, any questions you have about the survey, or any other research that Zweig Group does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there you have it, folks. A great reboot of the Zweig Letter Podcast. We're so excited to get started, and we look forward to hearing from you, and especially from those of you that have been big fans over the years of the original Zweig Letter Podcast. The reboot is going to be even better. That I promise you. So that's all for now. I'm Randy Wilburn, your host, and I will see you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Zweig Letter Podcast. We hope that you can be part of elevating the industry, and that you can apply our advice and information to your daily professional life. For a free digital subscription to the Zweig Letter, please visit thezweigletter.com/subscribe to gain more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about leadership, finance, HR, and marketing your firm. Subscribe today.